There is one thing that I return to every now and then that seems to make such absolute common sense, but you know that you are coming straight up against a multi-billion-dollar industry. A multi-billion-dollar industry that will do everything it can to make sure that common sense doesn't catch on. I'm not talking about big tobacco. I'm not talking about online gambling. I'm not talking about big sugar. I'm talking about universities. Universities are a multi-billion-dollar factory where the failure rate is starting to go through the roof. Now, the business model of universities works where if there's 50 spots in the class, the first 20 will go to the kids smart enough to actually go. Then the next 10 might go to those that are willing to pay up front, and then eventually they just keep dropping the bar until the room is full. Because we, the taxpayer, pay up front for everyone to be able to go to university. The problem is that when you keep lowering the bar for who can go to university and you don't limit the number of people who go to university, the cost to the taxpayer of people going to university goes through the roof. The Productivity Commission released a report that exposed yet another great failure of 21st century Whitlam, Julia Gillard. 21% of all students under the current demand-driven, which means if you want to go, you can go, university system, they fail or they drop out altogether. This means that the total HECS debt that is owed to the Australian taxpayer has gone, in just a few years, from $19 to $62 billion. Now, let's be clear. We want anyone who's smart enough to go to university to be able to go to university. We want them to make money, so if there are people willing to pay up front, fine and fair enough. There can even be a few spots in the room for the very line ball cases or the person who writes a plea letter, those special cases. I know, I was one of them. But when 65% of some people doing degrees in universities in this country didn't qualify to do them, it's a colossal waste of money. And this is not because the poorest kid from the harshest suburb should be denied the access to university. The barrier to whether you can go or not should be how smart you are. And we all know that as universities stray further and further and further away from teaching genuine vocational skills, as they continue to specialise in gender studies and campus freedom is broken down. The people who love the big industry that is universities, well, they demand that everyone should go to a university. Well, of course they do, because they want more places, more money, and it doesn't matter whether you pass or fail. And by the way, Julia Gillard didn't earn this degree. It was an honorary one that was given to her by a university in South Australia. Geez, I wonder what for. Because she helped big universities get even bigger, and we were the idiots who paid for it. I mention all of this not just because of those stories that are around today, but something is fundamentally broken in our country when the wankers at the front end of the bus think that there's something less if you're a person who didn't go to university. That somehow if you fail at life, you end up having to pick up a hammer. Whereas we all know that an awful lot of people who end up with tradies end up as the richest bloke or Sheila in the suburb. But I want to show you two things. This is a report that came out of the government just late last year, and it shows the total number of apprentices in the country, the tradies, that's the green line. As you can see, from 2014 to 2018, down, 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 down. The blue line is about other forms of training that aren't things like apprenticeships or university degrees. So at the same time that the university population was exploding, because you and I pay up front, at the same time as the HECS debt that was being built by anyone who wants to go, no matter the educative standards, apprenticeships were going down. Now, I know that the cool kids don't want you to know this, but you and I know this. As Australia gets bigger, we're going to need to build stuff. We're going to need to fix stuff. We're going to need people who can get their hands dirty, not just their mind on avant-garde cinema. I would love to see a system where we don't remove a single dollar from education, but we reallocate it. It's time that the billions of dollars that are going to university degrees that will either never be attained or never paid back starts to go into apprenticeships. In fact, this was something just written just a few days ago in the Financial Review, where by 2023, the jobs that the economy will actually need are the ones that people can get when they go to TAFE, not universities. So for those that are half listening on Twitter, I'm not saying that poor kids can't go to uni. I'm saying you have to be smart enough to go to university. And I'm saying that our economy and our country and our big Australia will need people who do apprenticeships. We need to take the 20 that became $60 billion that is still owing to us in HECS debt. We need to use those tens of billions of dollars to make sure that people do apprenticeships, that they get paid properly, that employers take on apprentices, that those apprentices, once they get their full attainment, that they can keep their jobs. This is not hankering for some wonderful, good old-fashioned day. It's about having an eye on the actual future, where good luck plumbing a house with a BA.